where do you think James Harden should be?
Well, I think he should be right about where he is because I talked about the responsibilities allocated to other individuals. Then you have a guy like James Harden. Owner Tillman Fertitta comes on the show with us and highlights how effective James Harden was as a defender in the post. The flip side to it is that it's so rare that you see him play defense. And for so many years, he's been maligned for his unwillingness to defend that it's hard to put him above the other guys that we mentioned because
Here's the
of
problem.
Do you go ahead? Do you think that James Harden will ever win another MVP? In this league?
I don't think so, but I think it's possible. Let me tell you this much: he will be an elite player and an elite offensive player. James Harden is the truth and a half. He's unstoppable. And the rules, and give him credit because he's a magician from the standpoint that he mastered the rules that are allowed today to his benefit.
Let me say this about Harden. I couldn't care less if he never wins another MVP.
Why?
MVP in the NBA is a joke. Again, more than 50% of the teams make the playoffs. There's no such thing in the history of basketball. That guy was the MVP. His team didn't make the playoffs. That doesn't happen. If you're an MVP, you'll have enough. I mean, maybe it's theoretically possible. It's very low probability, right? So then wait till the end of the playoffs to say who's MVP. Who overall would you like to have? You could still get knocked out in the first round and say, no, not because of that dude. That dude was the MVP, right? Let me say this about Harden. I'm not even talking about, well, in this playoff series, he did well. He needs to come through under pressure. Like, you know who else I had questions about? Steph Curry.
Good.
And then this season, this last finals, when his team needed him most, which I hadn't seen yet from him, in the finals, he was killing them from three. He was hitting those big shots, not just taking them, hitting them. And I saw from Steph, for the first time in his career, when his team needed him the most on the biggest stage, him be the best version of himself. We have not seen that from James Harden, period. Like when he was bringing the ball up the floor and the game was on the line and they're at Golden State and they have a chance to steal one, I'm sitting there going, dribbles it off his foot. Then he takes the three, but he's not even looking to hit it. He wants to jump under Draymond Green's legs, looking for the refs to bail him out. I think he has it in him to be a champion, but he's got to do it when it matters most. And until he does that, you want to call him top five? You can't. I think that's a stretch.
But here's where I have a problem with you when it comes to James Harden. You don't take enough into account of who he's going against and what he's got to work with in the throes of that competition. Mike D'Antoni, to me, is a difference maker compared to a Steve Kerr, for example. I understand that Steve Kerr, and you look at KD and what he had to say, and sometimes as the playoffs wane, then it's about your individual skill set, which Steve Kerr concurred. But the bottom line is that for several years, we lamented those things about the kind of situations that James Harden was put in. You talk about the ability to make shots, all the three-pointers that they missed and what have you. I'm looking at the fact that that particular game, Trevor Ariza did go 0 for 12, did go 0 for 9 from three-point range. I'm looking at the fact that they didn't have him last year, and they let him walk away, and then you acquired a Kenneth Faried as the season progresses, but then didn't use him come postseason time. I'm looking at Clint Capella being down. I'm looking at Chris Paul, missing 24 games each of the last two seasons. He was there in the playoffs this time, wasn't there the year before that. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint that when you look at James Harden, it's not just about what he does, it's also about who he's going against. You got to see that too.
Let me just say this, if you don't mind. Look, we all know it when we see it. If your team is going to lose ultimately by single digits in a Game 7 at home when you don't have your second best player and Trevor Ariza and your crew is going 0 for 27 from three at one point, then it is incumbent upon the best player on that team, if he wants to be champion, to hit his shots. And for those, and that's when I'm anti-analytics a little bit, because they're like, well, it's in a small sample size, anyone can make or miss. No, it comes down to the career legacy defining moments come down to simply who's going to hit them and who's going to miss them. And so far, when it's mattered most, Harden has missed. He has to hit.
This is one of the reasons why I'm looking so much forward to this upcoming season, because we have talked about all these other teams. We've even talked about Golden State and what they'll be once Klay Thompson comes back. Right? We haven't talked enough about Houston because, you see, as great as Chris Paul is as a floor general and orchestrator, understand that Russell Westbrook is the most athletic point guard in NBA history. He don't need to be shooting threes if you're going to shoot at 28 or 29%.
Fast breaks now, yeah.
But let me tell you something, this fast breaks now.
Yep.
And you tell me a greater finisher from the point guard spot than Russell Westbrook. This brother is sensational, and he does. He's maligned, and he shouldn't be for this. He will get to the hole, and he will kick it out to open shooters.
Absolutely. He showed you
James
to do that
Harden
with
is
Paul
going to get
George.
more open shots than he's had in years.
Russ is that dude.
Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.